Someone stole $25k from me. It ended costing him $500,000. A preamble. I was married to a very OCD and pragmatic man. For example, for him, a big romantic gesture had been to leave me alone for 24 hours at the hospital, right after I had our son, so he could go pay bills and mow the lawn. 20 years later I do understand he really did express love this way. But that's another story. I was in dire need of physical contacts because he'd never touched me unless he wanted very bland sex and also never ever kissed me. The story is not about him, it's only a preamble. So, I divorced him, not just for what's above mind you. I felt alone and unloved in this relationship. I just wrote about it to explain the state of mind I was in when I met this other person that we'll call PS. PS was the total opposite. He was very in tune with his emotions. He was very intense. This will be important later. He really expressed love like I thought I needed. On our first date, the waitress asked how long we had been together, since he was so into me and touching me. He made me feel amazing. He had a huge house and a rather flashy lifestyle, so I assumed he was really well off. He told me he owned a car wash and a phone marketing company. Fast forward a bit. At this point we had been dating for about a year, and he had just asked me and my son to move in with him. I wasn't 100% sure, but he prepared the room for my son nonetheless. As I started spending more time in his house, still keeping mine, I also started to see strange behavior. He'd be up all night, but sleep all day. I also overheard a few phone calls where I was telling people they owed money and needed to pay, but the conversations didn't fit with a car wash or phone marketing business. At some point, he told me he was having money problem. He said huge clients were late in paying, and that was jeopardizing his house payments. So, I, stupid me, offered to help. I'm missing a part of this story because it started as me offering help with the house, since we were there a lot. Still had my house though, but it ended up with me lending him $25k. I cannot for the life of me remember that progression. The loan was supposed to be for 3 weeks, he said. I'd have it all back in 3 weeks. That $25k $ came from my retirement savings / son's college money, so I had to pay a fine to access it. It's also money it took me 10 years to put aside. That money was very important to me. During those 3 weeks, I went out to have drinks with my friends and found him on a date with another woman. I saw him French kissing another woman. I said nothing, went to his house, packed my shit and left. So anyway, I thought he'd be an adult and would still reimburse the $25k the end of this 3 weeks. Big mistake. Someone I knew told me he was glad I left and proceeded to tell me about him. He said PS was a junkie, hooked on GHB, hence why he was so intense and so into his emotions. That also explained the erratic sleep / night patterns. But the final blow when he told me PS was also a con man. A specialist in defrauding older people by phone, his so-called phone marketing company. In the beginning, I wasn't sure I believed it, but then bits of what I had overheard in the last year started to make sense, and I realized it was all true. Back to this later. I tried having my money back many different ways, none worked. I was at the end of my rope, and since it was in my years post-divorce, and right after the 2008 to 2009 economic crash as well, I was poor as hell. So this is what I did. First, he had given me access to pay bills online, not to his bank accounts, but to his emails. So I was able to investigate all his accounts with the same password. I printed / screenshotted every little bit of information relating to money. I found proof that he was indeed scamming people, and found the people he worked with and even the name of the person at Western Union who facilitated the money transfer. I found out he was an organized criminal. I also found out he did this between the two countries. I started preparing strike one. So, for strike 1, I printed his face and the face of everyone working for / with him, from their online profiles, in defrauding people, and left hundreds of flyers in his neighborhood. I also called the hotline for financial crime prevention in both the countries, and gave very specific details and names. Know that even if he had given me the money, this goes against my core values and I would have done the same thing either way. At this point, I was preparing strike 2 too. Strike 2. I was dumb in lending him money, but at least I did it the right way. I wrote a check. I didn't do cash. I wanted proof just in case it would turn out to be a great idea. On the check, I had written that it was a loan. Thank you, Judge Judy, for this tip. Since he didn't pay me back, I prepared an invoice and sent it to me from his hacked email. When the time came to do my taxes, I filed the $25K as an expense using this invoice. I have many freelancers. I slid him as one of them, and it passed. Don't ask me how I got his social security number. I can't remember, but I ended up having access to it, so ratted him out to the eyes for hiding income. I found out later on through friends that the eyes started investigating him for unpaid tax. I heard he had to pay 38% taxes on that $25K plus pay a 20% fine for not declaring income. At this point I was satisfied. I figured $9,500 in taxes plus $5K in fines was 50% of what he owed me. At least he didn't get away with it all. But remember, I told you on the check I had written that it was a loan. So I took about 2 to 3 years, but I took him to court and won. He didn't even show up, so he has to reimburse the full $25K plus court fees, plus what he owes to the eyes. So it's $39,500 that he was to pay for not reimbursing $25K. To this day I still haven't seen a cent, but the rest of the story makes it worthwhile. For a while I thought the financial crime call I made had no effect. ****NOW the cherry on top****. What I didn't know at the time is that the eyes would team up with wire fraud division and look at everything he did. They were not able to catch him on the wire fraud, but since the house he had did not fit with the money he was declaring, they got him on tax evasion and gave him a certain delay to pay back taxes. I heard it was only 3 months, but I don't know if it's accurate. They got him so good, they ended up freezing his accounts, and he lost his house. The bank foreclosed it, and his debt to the eyes is still open. We are not in the US, so he won't go to jail for this, however. But my $25K that he did not want to repay ended up costing him over $500,000. And since you cannot go bankrupt for a debt you owe to the government, I'm happy to tell you that at 40 he had to move back with his parents and ask for welfare, and will probably be paying this for the rest of his life. This story is not finished, however. I just learned that he now has a job as a concierge in the apartment building of his parents, so I'll be contacting the court to have the money he owes me taken directly from his pay. The thing is, he has no idea I'm the culprit of all his bad fortune, and he recently sent me a message telling me he misses me, that I was an angel for him, and that he regrets what he did. Well, not me, loser, not me. Boss wouldn't pay me the money I earned, so I had his company shut down. Last year I started working for a local plumbing company that seemed promising. Would pay top dollar to employees for good old-fashioned labor. So I signed my W-2 and went on my way. Seems legit, right? I started out making an hourly wage, was given my own work van, and was offered a work cell phone. However, if you used your personal cell phone, the owner of the company would pay your bill because you're using your own phone. How neat is that? Fast forward a month or two, I was forced to make commission based off of every job, and I didn't have a say in this. But 20% of every job you go to? Hell, that's a lot of money in plumbing. So I was none the wiser. Eventually I found out that my paychecks weren't having any taxes taken out of them. So I asked my boss, why am I not having taxes taken out of my check? To which he replied, when we switched you to commission, you're a subcontractor now. You're 1099. You're gonna be making so much bank now, bro. Didn't sign a 1099 form, but okay. As the time went on, I started working 90-hour weeks with no break. If my phone was turned off and the office folk tried to reach me and couldn't, they would take money out of my paycheck. The phone bill never got paid. There would be days where I wouldn't make a single dime because the boss would mess something up in our system. We also had no heat in our vans, and when it got to -14 degrees outside, his words to us were, go buy a fucking blanket. I can't afford repairs like this right now, while he is in Florida on a cruise with his whole family. So like anyone else, I just up and quit. Fuck that. When I left, I asked for my checks. I was owed 3 of them for the weeks I worked, but my boss wasn't ready to give them up yet. You fucked me over, and now I'm going to fuck you over. He said when I asked why he wasn't going to pay me. I offered multiple times for him to just meet me so this wouldn't have to go any further. He refused. I took to r/legalavis, bless them, and asked what I should do. The responses led me to LERA, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, to file a wage claim to get my money. But on top of that, I filed a report with them stating the company doesn't pull permits, which is required to do when replacing people's plumbing. So they sent over an investigator to check these claims out. I then went to the eyes to find out about this whole tax ordeal. I filed the proper paperwork to have the eyes check and see if I was misclassified as a 1099 employee when I should have been a W2 employee since they weren't taking taxes out. Sure as shit I was wrongfully not getting taxes taken out of my checks. So the eyes sent an investigator of their own. Now at this point I see on my phone that I still have their email address linked to my Google account. So I do some snooping. It turns out they haven't paid city taxes in over 6 years, and that the office manager, a woman who has verbally abused me time and time again, collects disability through the state, but still collects a 1.5k paycheck from the company every week. You can bet ass I sent that in with the eyes. Screenshots included in my email. This is how it all unfolded. I have a friend that still works, or rather worked for them at the time, and he told me about the investigators coming in. LERA fined them upwards of $50,000 for failing to produce the proper permits for work that was performed. They also paid me what the company owed me with interest, since I waited over a month for those checks. On top of all of this, the eyes made them pay for my taxes at the end of the year, took away the office manager's disability, audited them because they hadn't paid city taxes and fined them for each employee they did this to. At this time as well, all of his fleet vans broke due to wear and tear. This resulted in the company closing. When he asked me why I did all of this, my response was simply, "You fucked me over, so I fucked you over." Edit. I did sign a W2, but they never gave me any tax forms at the end of the year and told me to fill out a 1099 instead of giving me my W2. Edit 2. I'm not the best with tax form names. I signed one when I first started that stated I would be receiving a W2 at the end of the year. Sorry for the confusion. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.